Namaste, viewers. Welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA. And as I always request you, please like, subscribe, support our channel, give your feedback, and you know, we really enjoy your feedbacks as well. So thank you very much for that. Let's get going. Today, I have a wonderful pleasure of welcoming Madam Mrs. Esther Dhanraj, who I know that she is very well known on the video circle, and she has been an outspoken person, and once upon a time, a Christian, and a word that you got used is lay evangelist. So then, Esther ji, sometimes you may want to explain that what is a lay evangelist, and you have left Christianity, and now you are part of Hindu University of America, an institution that was established several years ago, but has gotten much more active now. So, congratulations to the leadership of Hindu University of America, and congratulations for Esther ji to joining the program at Hindu University of America as Director of Community Outreach. So, tell me, how did that happen, and why did you join there?
Um, why did I join? Okay, first of all, namaste to all my Jaipur dialogue audiences. I have several audiences, Vibhuti Ji, typically, a YouTube channel operator has only one set of audiences, right? But I have several sets of audiences because I don't run a YouTube channel, I don't operate a YouTube channel. So that I see as an advantage because then I can, you know, um, address several different kinds of audiences from across the board. But with that, yes, namaste again to all my Jaipur Dialogue audiences. And I'm happy to come back to your show. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Vibhuti.
Thank you.
Um, why did I join Hindu University of America? Well, I think that was just a natural transition um, of mine, being coming from academia, of course, in a different context, which is the Christian studies, religious studies. It was only natural for me to get into something that was academics, but fortunately, we have academics in Hinduism for the very first time, which is being offered by Hindu University of America. So I like academics. I like staying in touch with the academia. I feel that's a very powerful voice. Despite what people want to say, think about visual media being the most powerful voice, I don't deny that. But academics has a very plays a very significant role. So I think this was my natural transition from Christianity, from the as a faithful Christian to an Christian academician, to Hinduism, to Hindu academics. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it does sound. It looks a transition. Transition. I would prefer the word perhaps. You have awakened to the truth. That's very important. To the truth is a word which mostly people all demand from everybody else, except they don't offer truth themselves. So that's why I always end my shows by saying Satyameva Jayate. And for the truth to triumph, people like you and I and many more have to stand up. So you have said something very important, that the world always seeks academic validation of a theory, of a thought, and that is very important. So tell us something about your transitioning. There is one particular word which I was very curious about, and I want to hear from you. Your introduction, sometimes it says lay evangelist. So what is a lay evangelist, and how did you transition from lay evangelist to a Hindu?
Um, yeah. Okay. Let's say metamorphosis. Is that a good word?
Yeah.
Instead of transition. That's what happened to me. So lay evangelism, in the context of Christian evangelism, there are two kinds of evangelists, according to me. People may differ, people may come up with more categories, but to me, broadly, there are two kinds of evangelists: the career evangelists and the lay evangelists. That's how I categorize them. So, career evangelist is the one who does nothing else but evangelize. That's his lively source of livelihood. That's his profession, his or her profession, her career. So now lay evangelists are uh, they do not take it up as a profession, as a career. That's not their source of livelihood. They do it for the passion of doing it. They do it because they believe it as truth that all the non Christians are perishing and are going to an eternal hell. Therefore, it is the burden of every Christian that has been saved by the grace of Jesus Christ to evangelize the non Christians. So they do not go to eternal hell, instead, get eternal life. So that is the burden that a Christian, any Christian is a lay Christian. So that is a burden that a Christian takes on himself or herself and goes out and evangelizes. That is lay evangelism. No academic credential, no theological studies, no theological degrees, but just by virtue of being a Christian, a church going, a Bible reading Christian, believing Christian, this Christian takes it upon herself or himself, go out and evangelize. That is a lay Christian, lay evangelist. So contrast that with a career evangelist. A career evangelist would be, like I said, somebody whose source of income, source of livelihood is depends on how many people he evangelizes. Sometimes they are incentive based, like you evangelize so many people, you get this kind of incentive. It's just like I always said, it's a multi-level marketing model. It's a corporate model, and evangelists are the salespeople, the career evangelist. Now the lay evangelist is not getting any benefit, whereas the career evangelist gets paid for it. That's his salary. So his or her salary depends upon how many people they evangelize, how well they're carrying the on their shoulders the institution of the church and taking it forward, or the corporation of the church and taking it forward, expanding it, growing it. So that, in a nutshell, is the difference between a lay evangelist and a career evangelist. Now, if you come to me, I call myself a lay evangelist because A, I honestly, with all my heart and mind and even soul, believed that I was going to heaven because and getting an eternal life. So heaven is a different understanding in Christianity. It has a different definition. It's a one-time thing. You don't go to heaven, spend some time, come back in another birth. No, Christianity has only one heaven, and this is an eternal heaven. Christianity has only one hell, one time hell, and it's an eternal hell. So I truly believe that I was saved by the grace of God, Jesus, and I was going to heaven, and everybody else that did not know Jesus was perishing. And therefore, it was my burden, it was my duty, my responsibility given to me just by virtue of getting baptized and just by virtue of being a Christian. It was given to me, handed down personally by Jesus to save those unsaved souls. So I wouldn't say that I just went out into the world and evangelized like nobody's business, holding a Bible in my hand, knocking on people's doors and telling them that they are worshiping demons. Therefore, they have to abandon that form of worshiping the Supreme and come to Christianity. I never did that. I never did that. In fact, my father always opposed to the very idea that uh, you should go, no matter how burdened you are or how burdened you feel you are. You have no business, no right to go and tell another person that what he is worshiping is not God. So I got the same thing. I had the same thing. In fact, he even objected to the pastors coming to my home and saying it, I mean, talking anything, using any derogatory language to the Indian, deity, the Hindu deities and Hindu forms of worship. So I think I inherited that somewhere. And of course, it was a conflict. It was definitely a conflict because as a good Christian, all you would shed your own ego. You would go out there, and in humility, you would ask people, share the gospel. That's what they call, share the gospel with them and try to save them. You and I may sit down here and say that it's proselytization, it's conversion, it's coercion. Well, it is. But back then, that was not what I thought it was. I thought I was just saving people. So that is a lay evangelist's burden. So I honestly believe that they were all perishing, and it was my duty, my Christian duty, handed to me by Jesus Himself, to share about my experience, my family's experience, and perhaps convince them that what I'm saying is true, the only truth, and make them Christians.
That's so fascinating to hear. And I also wanted to ask you this particular thing. At what point in time in your life you realize that the entire concept of heaven and hell being what it is? Because nobody has seen heaven, nobody has seen hell, and and there is no call report, as you very rightly said, that you don't go to heaven and come back and do something else here. There is no comebacks. So, where did this concept of heaven and hell get established? At what point in time? And what was your moment of awakening that you said, no, this is not okay?
Well, you said there is nobody has seen heaven and hell. Says who, Vibhuti Ji? Christian. They see it every day. They're being taught about it every single week. Somewhere in some church, in some corner of the world, some pastors are definitely talking about what the heaven looks like, what this Christian that is listening to him is going to get after his death. So no, they have seen heaven. They see it every day in their visions, in their delusional world. Now there are several books written on heaven. There's a famous book called 7 Minutes in Heaven, written by uh, okay, 7 Minutes in Heaven book. Oh, 90 Minutes in Heaven, written by Don Piper. It's a 90-minute encounter that this person claims to have had with God in heaven. So he died, he was taken to heaven immediately, and he spent about 90 minutes in heaven, and he was sent back to earth to share this good news about heaven and all the good things about heaven. There are several people who did that. Now, their basis of that description that they make in those books is the book of Revelation in the Bible. So there is both the description of heaven and hell in the book of Revelation. So, yes, nobody has seen heaven. There are only speculations, there are only delusional narrations of what they think in a maybe state of delirium. You know, when you get fever sometimes, have you experienced that?
Yes.
We have about 104, 105, the peaks of temperature, body temperature rises, and then you go into a state of delirium, and
Yes.
you see heaven. You see heaven. So that is what I attribute it to, delirium. But yes, this person and everybody who has seen heaven, mind you, saw it in on a hospital bed or lying on the roadside in a pool of blood, during an accident. These are the times people have seen heavens. So,
Wow.
yeah. Nobody sits in their drawing room, in their living room, in a couch, and nobody is praying, and suddenly heaven, God just manifests in front of them and giving them a glimpse of the heaven. No, it never happened like that. They always see heaven in when they are, lying on a hospital bed, on life support system, or by the side of the road.
Fascinating. As you have very correctly pointed out, that you have many audiences and you are a free person, and you can, if I may use the word with a chuckle, evangelize your thoughts now on
But for
various
the good,
channels.
for the
You
higher, yeah, but for greater good.
for the
Just
greater good. So let's come back to your role as a director of community outreach. How does this new role, that you have taken up, you know, combined with the mission and vision of Hindu University of America? I know it was established several years ago, and is now much more active with their program offerings and the literature they produce now, the academic validation for that purpose. So share with us, why was it needed? Why is it needed in this Christian country? I mean, it is a very tough task, because we are all here as immigrants practicing the freedom of religion to be who we are, but we are also burdened with evangelists, because I'm condemned to hell because I'm not accepting that way of life. So where does the Hindu University of America fit in the American context?
so, there is a ton of literature about Hinduism in the West, right? But what is already out there in this big marketplace, academic marketplace, is very damaging to Hinduism and the Hindu civilization and the Hindu civilizational identity of a Hindu, right? So it's damaging from every angle you look at. All of what is there has been conceived of through the Western lens and Western academia, right? And what happened? What did that result in? Hinduism is a chaotic, incoherent system of beliefs, you know, compilation of several beliefs, and it has had a very incoherent historical development. It is very confusing. It borders on, I mean, it is illogical, therefore abandon it. That has been the conclusion of viewing Hinduism through the Western lens. Hinduism has been problematized as a, this is more damaging than the first view, okay? It has been demonized, it has been problematized as oppressive because of the lack of understanding of the Varna Jati system, lack of understanding of the historical roots of Sati Pratha, or the Kanya Shulakam, the dowry, which has been translated into dowry in the modern times, or so all these prathas and vidhis, our traditions, have not been understood like they should have been, not in their historical context. So they bring those prathas from those times and impute the modern Hindu with all those with these all those traditions, and they think India is still until recently at least, India is a country of culture of snake charmers. Well, I think I heard this even in my teenage and even in my 20s. India being equated to a country of nation culture of snake charmers and all that. So this is the understanding that the West has about Hindus. So in a scenario like this, Hindu University of America um, opens, you know, the doors to the outsiders. Now, what happened is there are about 3 million Hindus who have settled in the United States since the 1960s, and they have made this their homeland, right? So many of the first groups of families who migrated to the United States, they still hold strong to their upbringing and their learnings that they received in their youth when they were when their roots were still strong and their beliefs were still being properly um, incorporated into their lifestyle by their elders. Now, they are the people that are behind the building of more than 1,000 Hindu temples in North America. You would know that
Yes.
so far, and that number is growing, fortunately. Now, these temples are their offering to their Hindu and Bharatiya roots, as well as their legacy to their future generations. Now, we'll park that thought for a minute. Coming to the second and third generations of Hindu Americans, like many ethnic groups that America has drawn to herself, these new generation of Hindu Americans, they possess a dual consciousness. Okay, and they are at once Hindu because of their upbringing and their constant teaching at home by their first generation parents and grandparents, guardians, relatives, but they're also 100% Americans. So, what does 100% American look like while trying to be a Hindu? I'll get to that in a minute. So, in this scenario, there are very few spaces where this dual relationship can be expressed for them, unfortunately, and even fewer places where their Hinduism, can be rigorously explored outside, outside of their families, outside of their households. So they don't have any place for that. They can't even display their identity. They can't even wear their identity without being apologetic about it, without being ashamed about it. So they don't have, these youngsters, I feel so bad that they do not have a place to express their Hindu-ness, let's call it. Now, at the same time, okay, now we will park the second thought to the first, next to this first thought. At the same time, there is also a significant growth of spiritual but not religious, you know, spiritual but not religious section of people, and spiritual but not affiliated, SBNR and SBNA. And these are primarily Western, international, and diverse. And the number of people in the United States alone who identify in this category numbers to more than 60 million. That is 20% of the US population, according to Pew Research.
Yeah.
So these sections of population have embraced many practices such as yoga and meditation, bhajans, kirtans, and vegetarianism and veganism, which I would say has its roots in Hinduism. All these practices and ideas have entered the American popular culture through retreats, yoga centers, ashrams, gurus coming from India, and of course now through the internet. So, this category of SBNR and SBNA includes several subcategories. I mean, that's I won't go into the details of it, but they're somehow called dissenters, turned off by their own religious affiliations, or they have fallen out of their religious roots and they choose not to go back. Then we have the second category, that is casuals, people who see religious or spiritual practices as useful and functional, but not a very big part of their lifestyle. I mean, it's okay to not attend a certain Satyanarayan Vrat, you know, in a family's home. They're casuals. They see the importance in that, but hey, something else came up, so it's okay to not attend. Then there are explorers, people to who seem to have who want to engage in that spiritual um, exploration. That's those are the explorers. Now, lastly, are immigrants, the people who have embraced a novel spiritual realm and are trying to adjust themselves to the newfound identity and its community. So they're not completely settled, but that's their goal, getting assimilated. So these are the different categories of SBNR and SBNAs that we have in this country. Now, this category also includes about 36 million yoga practitioners in the US alone. And it would be safe to say that another 300 million are practicing yoga and meditation around the world. Now, this, so I mean, these categories, they're just about there, I would say, on the bench. They're sitting, sorry, on the fence. They're sitting on the fence. So, who is tutoring them? So we parked two thoughts. Let me go back to them. So the people that are building temples and the people that are the people that are key in establishing Hinduism in this country, they've done great job. They've done their part, right? But this second and third generation, the second thought that we have parked, the second and third generation, who are SBNR and SBNA mostly, are just about there on the fence. They need structure to why they believe what they believe. So, the question that we should ask is, can the temples built by the first generation American Hindus, or the veganism and vegetarianism that the second and third generations have adopted, the bhajans and kirtans that they like to be part of, the yoga and meditation that they immerse themselves in, is that alone going to revive and promote and preserve a culture that was originally rooted in knowledge, rationalization, critical thinking? I would say temples and all these other institutions, religious institutions, have a place in the world, but I don't think they can bridge that gap between the lost roots and this generation, the second, third generation of Hindus in America. So, what is the effective way of doing this? I would say academics, because the temples and yoga, meditation, all these are, they primarily exist outside the academy, and there is virtually no academic space or environment that integrates rigorous academic study with a scope for spiritual exploration, growth, spiritual elevation, transformation. So these things do not offer that academic space. Therefore, we need academic voice, a strong academic rigor, I would say, to bridge this huge gap, because they're just about there. They're spiritual. They're calling themselves spiritual. They're not religious because they don't understand. And this is another mistake that a lot of people do, that spiritual but not religious. But how can you be um, spiritual without religiously following something? Right? So, if you have a lifestyle, if you have incorporated a lifestyle of spirituality, like you wake up at a certain time at dawn, and then you get on with your, your ablutions, and then you come to doing your sadhana and all that. So, this is the lifestyle you must follow religiously to become spiritual. Now, if this religious following of a certain spiritual discipline incorporates worship of a certain deity, that is religion. So, how can you be religious without being spiritual? How can you be spiritual without being religious? To separate these two, I would say, is the lack of understanding. And I, as the senior generation, would take it on myself that we have not handed it down to our second and third generations of Hindu Americans correctly, perfectly. We failed in our duty. Therefore, I thought this was a great platform for me. This is a great platform. Um, Borrowing from Christianity, I don't want our second and third generations to be lost. Their soul, their atmas, to be lost to, darkness in their next life. So sowing the seeds of Hinduism is very, very important in the minds of our second and third generation Hindus, even first generation Hindus. A lot of our students are in their 40s, 50s, 60s. We have some 70-year-old students also. When it comes to Hinduism, we're all just beginning out. We're just freshly out of high school, even if we are 60 or 50 in our 40s.
You are so right about that. One of the things which I have felt ever since 1991, when I came to this country and talk about India as a business destination. So I had to answer questions related to our faith, our beliefs, why we are idol worshippers, why we are the way we are, because it was in direct conflict with the evangelicals or the Christian or the non-Abrahamic faiths. We were at a direct contrast and direct, opposite of their belief system. I had to explain many things. So I totally relate with you on that. And to that end, yes, academic validation is a must. So very proud of you that you joined this movement, I would put it that way, the Hindu University of America. But tell me one thing, I looked up, you are offering lots of certificate programs. The three of them that really caught my attention was, Shuddha Hindi was another course that you offer, speaking and understanding Shuddha Hindi, and how to deal with Hindu phobia. That's another one. And then you also do Hindu civilizational studies. That is where I think the first generation people who came to America to become everything America offered and forgot very conveniently their essential past, which is what made them who they are. So
Absolutely.
this is very critical. So what is the strategy that you are following in that regard? Because I know this is not a conversation of one time, because this matter needs to reach out to 3 million Hindus, and he knows Hindus in him. So they have to reach out because, yeah, you are very correct. Majority of us do not have any inkling or clue to how to impart education to the second and third generation. I have done it with my son, and I'm very proud of that. But that is an individual effort, not as a collective part. I did not send him to an institution, a university to study Hindi, but I did it as a practice. So like my wife is a Marathi speaking woman, I'm a Hindi speaking, Maithili speaking guy. So we began to communicate with him in the house, me in Hindi and Maithili, and she in Marathi. And today he speaks fluent Marathi, fluent Hindi, understands who we are, and we did not impose anything on him. We
That's
said,
important.
what I said to him was, ask your questions. Ask your questions. That's it. Nothing, I didn't do anything more. And that's where the dialogue began to happen. So I'm very proud of this establishment of Hindu University of America taking a very strong step, academic step, to inculcate that sense in people. But we have to also propagate. We have to become pracharaks of our faith. And you
Correct.
can't become pracharaks of your faith just as you became a lay evangelist. We have to begin to believe that the process that we are offering to the world is the essential truth. Because
Correct.
one thing which I want to ask you on this one, that Why Hindus have been dhimmis, why we have been so diffident, why have we been so quiet? Because there is a point which I have asked this question to many people, that every established religion has a date specific. On this day, Christianity got established. On this day, Islam got established. This day, Sikhs got established, and whatever denomination. I have no problem with that at all, because we all evolve into certain practice.
Mhm.
But Sanatan existed forever. That's who we are. How did we get Christian as Hindu, if I may say so?
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. How did we get Christian as Hindus? Yes. See, Bharat is an ancient civilization, ancient most civilization, right? She has nurtured the philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or the whole world is my family, one family. And that is a lofty philosophy, especially for the world ridden with conflict and my way or the highway kind of exclusivist religious ideology, right? Now, history is evidence to the fact that Sanatan Sanskriti has effortlessly and willingly embraced, assimilated new religions and philosophies as part of its culture. However, you know, the lack of its systematic academic study in the modern times has resulted in the weakening of the very identity of its followers. And I think I feel there had been absolutely no effort to preserve its wide ranging literature, and that literature which actually caused Bharat to sustain for millennia. That literature is mostly lost, and what is remaining has no takers. Thanks to the generation that is truly madly deeply in love with the Western thought and lifestyle. They feel that that literature is now out of context, outdated, superstitious, because that's what has been presented to them in the translated languages language, basically English, because the root is lost, because we were denied Sanskrit. So the only thing available for the newer generations was the translated version of our own literature, and therefore they said it was translated to be out of context. It was translated to be superstitious and outdated, irrelevant to the modern minds, modern thought, modern life. Now, add to this the thousands of years of history of recurrent invasions and colonization of Bharat. This has fractured the backbone of Bharat, the very psychological, the psyche of the person has been altered, and it kind of relegated the human, the Hindu mind into that subjugative status. So we are the subjugated. We have to behave subjugated. We cannot raise our voices. So that became the collective mindset of the Hindu population. Now, the independence movement kind of briefly, brought in that spirit of confidence, that kind of self identity, but unfortunately that ended up only to be a change in the political, that only defined the political dimensions, I would say. So it did not do anything. Only the political state of the country got altered, and like someone put it, the power got transferred from the white sahibs into the hands of the brown sahibs. That's what happened. So it did nothing to restore the civilizational identity. The serious lack of self dignity, confidence, and cultural understanding that continued, and it worsened as Bharat came to be ruled by factions that did not align with her Sanskriti or values. So the preservation of our dharohar, the knowledge systems, never really found place in the conversations of statesmen. They did not care. They just did not care. In fact, they worked in the opposite direction. They worked to damage it. They worked towards annihilating it. They would have been successful had it not been for another statesman, you know, to rise up to the occasion and right the wrong. So even after independence, the study of Sanskrit and Hinduism was already taken away from us, was removed from formal academics in the name of secularism, and English medium education replaced it. Now, long story short, the dearth of in-depth learning of Bharatiya Itihas, her philosophy and Sanskrit has created a vacuum and has, I would say, it bred lower self-esteem in a Hindu. So the very nature of Hinduism is Vidya, right? Pursuit of Vidya. And Vidya is embedded in the very, very philosophy, I would say the DNA of Hinduism.
Right.
And the philosophy is rooted in critical thought, logical reasoning, exploration of truth as the ultimate goal. Uh, all these make the Hindu culture a culture of thought more than a religion. That is why I see a lot of Hindus still have struggle with accepting Hinduism as a religion. So they say it is a culture. It is civilization. Well, I have no problem with that. But unless you bring in the idea of religion into Hinduism, I mean, I would ask, why are you ashamed? Why are you ashamed of calling it a religion? Just because organized religions actually ruined the word religion, I think that is why we do not want to equate ourselves with them, and in that effort, we do not want to call ourselves a religion. Yes, we are a civilizational identity. We are a civilization. Hindu is a civilization, but the faith that Hindus follow is a religion. So it's not just mere religion. Again, in the same breath, I would say it's a culture of thought, culture of rationalization, culture of evaluating, culture of questioning, culture of exploring the truth through debates and discussions, discourses, disagreements. A lot of times you don't agree, but that is how you arrive at the truth. So it is a culture of rationalization and thought. So approaching the Sanatan Vedic Dharma and Sanatan Sanskriti through epistemological inquiry and hermeneutics is has become inevitable now. It's unavoidable. We cannot shy away from um, understanding Hinduism through the academic lens. That's how our ancestors used to understand Hinduism. That's how they used to view it, through the academic lens. So at the same time, Hinduism also promotes experiential knowledge, right? Hinduism is all about experiential knowledge, self exploration. But how do you get to a point where you sit down and say that, okay, I have to explore myself, this truth? I have to get to this supreme truth by myself. There is an academic process to do that. That is what Gurukulas used to do. That is what gurus used to do. Help the student get to that state. So that was taken away from us. And today we are saying that Hinduism is self-exploratory, therefore it does not require academic, approach. That's very sad. So Hindu University of America is making an effort to bridge this gap, gap in our understanding of our own roots, our philosophy, our history. So that is what we are trying to do here. Now, through the epistemological inquiry and hermeneutics and lower criticism, higher criticism, I'm just borrowing all these words from words of academic words from Christianity, my Christian studies vocabulary. Unless we sit down and do all this, we will lose our new generations of Hindus, and also we will increase the gap, increase the dent that Western academia has. We will increase that gap in the understanding of Hinduism by the Western academician and Western media. So it will open doors to outsiders to better understand, to better their knowledge about Hinduism, its values, and that I would think can help heal the broken world through the eternal dharma and the universal laws that Sanatan Dharma has given to the world. And Hindu University of America is in that direction, an effort to achieve that goal. Now, yeah.
So good to hear that. And I wanted to touch upon a few things, like, for example, the identity part. You are very clear about that. We have lost our Hindu identity. You very beautifully connected that practice of religion and spirituality has to go together. One is not bereft of the other. The other part
Mm.
is that I was very happy to see that in Stanford there was a conference recently held just 2 days ago that Dr. Vijayaji, who I know because she has been on our show with Rajiv Malhotraji for Snakes in the Ganga Project, the
Mhm.
book they wrote together.
Mhm.
Her two sons were wearing a dhoti and a
Correct.
shirt when they were sitting on a stage to expound their thought and the process. I was very proud of that. So we
Mhm.
have kind of the second is how our linguistic traditions were destroyed. And
Correct.
to that end, I'm very delighted that you are offering certificate courses in Sanskrit in HUA.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that's very, very important. I studied Sanskrit in my school time,
Mm.
but we had to learn English. While English was a compulsory subject, Sanskrit was an optional study.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if Sanskrit was also a compulsory study, maybe things could have been different. We know
Correct.
everything about it. We know the fact that Sanskrit is the most efficient
Mhm.
way for computer programming. Everybody knows that.
Right.
This is what is important here is that, you have talked about one more thing, the apologetics and liberation from superstition. Tell us something about that because very important. We're living in a world where everybody loves to be a victim and we believe in certain X, Y, and Z superstitions. How does one, through the word of logic and understanding, debate, dialogue, discussion, deliberation, get over that part of the process, which is very important?
Can we take a break here?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. I'm just paying. You'll have to repeat that question.
Okay. So now the question has slipped off. Vasu, be careful about the edit part. The question is that you have we live in a world of superstition. The world today, as we see it, every practicing religion immediately falls into the process of victimhood, and they have their own set of superstitions. So, how does one deal with? Because you have done tremendous work in apologetics. How does that apply to in a world where our way of life is all based on debate, dialogue, discussion, deliberation? But people say no discussion, no debate, no dialogue. You do as I tell you. This is the mandate. How does one get over that?
So let me get your question correctly. You are saying that Hindus are victims, have this victim
No,
mentality.
Hindus don't. Hindus just carry on. But Islam, Christianity, they always trip into victimhood. So, for example, Islam is in 150 countries plus countries, but you often hear on many TV shows that how Christians are being attacked, how Muslims are saying that they are attacked. But
They're
Hindus are
unsafe.
never talking about being attacked, although we are the ones who are actually attacked. That's what I'm trying to talk about.
Right. So how do you get over it through apologetics?
Right.
Pause. I want you to pause here. I want.
Okay, Vasu, we will pause again here at 50. So one of the things that I wanted to ask you that everywhere you need money for things to happen, right? Nothing spreads without money. As a banker, I know money makes the world go round.
Mhm.
So the question here is that you offer so many certificate courses, including wellness retreat, which I'm coming to end of the month, and you offer programs on Sanskrit and Hindu phobia and others. How has been the response of people? And how are you doing your fundraising part of it? Because Hindus are reticent in giving dan. Dan is a big concept in Hindu philosophy, but people are hesitant to give. Doing
Correct.
how are you going about that? So
Correct.
talk about a few courses and your efforts to fundraise and strengthen Hindu University of America.
Great. So I will go approach this lengthy question of yours. It's a challenge, like you said, Vibhuti. It's a great challenge because Hindus in this country have done exceptionally well, especially those Hindus who came here in the 60s and 70s. They have made their money, they have accomplished great things in their careers, in their chosen businesses, and they're retired now. They're well meaning Hindus, and they already support a lot of causes. And a small set of a micro minority, I would say, a micro number of that population, wealthy Hindu population, support Hindu University of America. Like we have our campus in Orlando, Florida. It's a huge campus donated by a business family, a real estate family, and his name is Sri Brahm Agarwal, and his family, son-in-law Suresh Gupta. So they have been very, very generous in donating the land to us, but you need to establish buildings on top of the land, right? So yes, we have several certificate and actually there are three categories of courses in HUA: certificate courses, continuing education, and degree programs. So continuing education is mostly for people that have, they have really, like I said, they're fresh out of high school when it comes to uh, Hinduism. So we have about four divisions, which is continuing education division, graduate division, advanced studies division, and undergraduate division. So right now we have continuing education, which has community education and certificate programs. And community education is this is appropriate for people interested in personal development and people who wish to learn at their own pace on an ongoing basis. These are mostly, like I said, people that are that want to understand their roots, because in their youth and in their educational stage of their lives, they didn't have much time to focus on Hinduism. And then in the same category of continuing education, we have certificate programs, which is appropriate for people who want to develop or expand set of skills in specialized areas through intense period of structured learning. Now, just because it's community education doesn't mean the programs do not have structure. They are very well structured and presented like any other professional course is presented. And next we have graduate division. So graduate division has, uh, excuse me, graduate diploma, master's degree, doctoral degrees, and accelerated MA PhD program. Now,
Okay.
these are all pretty much, yeah, pretty much self-explanatory, so I won't go into the details of that.
Right.
And then we have advanced studies division, which is, it's not yet offered, but we plan to offer. So right now what we are offering is just the continuing education, which is community education, certificate programs, and graduate programs. And the fourth category is undergraduate division. Again, we are not yet offering undergraduate divisions. And right now, as we talk, we are working on accreditation. We are recognized by the state of Florida, but we are working for the national accreditation. So, funding. That's a very, very important conversation. Actually, thanks for bringing it up. As I said, Hindus are well meaning, they want to give, but who has gone and asked them? Have we, as organizations, Hindu organizations, really tapped into all the resources that are available for us in the US? No, we haven't. Because to be able to do that, we need that marketing dollar. Even to approach people uh, to travel, you need that marketing dollar. And you and I know how cash crunched, Hindu organizations are, whether it is in the US or in India. If every Hindu that came here in their 60s and 70s that have done exceptionally well in their lives and have accumulated, earned, I wouldn't say accumulated, earned wealth from the state, if each one of them would say that 10% of our estate we are giving to HUA, that is a lot. That is a lot. I want to give you a perspective, Vibhuti Ji. In America, the universities operate with something called annual budget, and then there is an endowment, right? So there is a third category of fund, which is the runway fund, which is a reserve. Now there is operation fund, there is a runway fund, and then there is the endowment fund, right? So operation fund is something that you would utilize for your operations, daily operations, annual operations. Now runway fund is a reserve. It is kept at a certain X amount and it should never come down. This X amount will give a visibility of a few years into the future for the university's sustenance. Now, the endowment fund is never to be touched. The runway fund can be utilized and then replenished, the same amount. But the endowment fund is never touched. Now, I will share with you the endowment of some universities and tell you what we are competing against and where we stand. Okay, so Harvard University, its annual budget is 5 billion and its endowment size is 52 billion. Princeton University, annual budget 2.6 billion, endowment size 37.7 billion. Duke University, annual budget 7.1 billion, endowment size 12.7 billion. UC Berkeley, 3 billion annual budget, 6.8 billion endowment size. Penn State, 7 billion annual budget, 6.2 billion endowment size. Liberty University, which is a theological seminary, went into a mainstream, became a mainstream college, university. 840 million is their annual budget. 1.7 billion is the endowment size. Now, purely, if you look at theological seminaries, which Hindu University of America falls under, Princeton Theological Seminary, the year of formation was 1812, and their operating budget is 47 million, and their endowment size is 1.6 billion. Dallas Theological Seminary, 42 million is their annual budget. It was established in the year 1924, and its endowment size is 52 million. So just to give you a context there. So this is what we are competing with. Where do we stand? Nowhere. We just don't stand anywhere. So the college was established in about 30 years ago,
Yeah.
and it has, for a very long time, it stayed dormant. It did not go anywhere, and just 5 years ago, in 2019, it has been revived, and we are just about there, as a first step, trying to create awareness, raise awareness that, hey, we are here, trying to do something in this area of bridging the gap. And I can proudly say that perhaps we are the only Hindu seminary. And we position ourselves as a Hindu seminary. And
Good.
I'd like to offer courses in the area of um, um post-colonial Hindu studies, and certificate in Mahabharata, peace and conflict studies, all from Hindu perspective. Okay, I took a course in my seminary called World Religions, and the textbook that we were given was, it had all the world religions, everything from the through the lens of the Christian. So you can imagine the kind of content that is there on Hinduism in that textbook. If you just type the word world religion textbooks on world religions, the only books you will find are those that are written by Christians. Only those. Even the the seminaries in India or across the world, these are the very textbooks that they read, because there is no other textbook written through any other lens.
That's very fascinating and disappointing both, that we have not allowed or not made our texts popular around the world, whereas the others have done it. See, listen,
Correct.
this is a fascinating conversation of learning and knowing that what Hindu University of America is doing in America right now. And I would urge upon the viewers, spread the word. This is where it begins from, spreading the word. Contribute, support uh, your own cause. Otherwise, as Esther Ji was pointing out, the second and third generation people will be remain Hinos. That's what is important. This is very important, that you cannot lose your identity. Esther Ji, it has been fascinating to have you as always, and we will continue the dialogue. You have many platforms. You are always welcome. We are always happy to have you on our platform because, as you know, we try to change the narrative or rewrite the narrative in a correct perspective. So, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, viewers. Please like, subscribe, and support our channel. Support the cause that we stand for. And as I always say, Satyamev Jayate, for truth to triumph, we have to stand behind it. Thank you.
Namaste, Vibhuti Ji. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.